and welcome again to another episode of Hermetic Journeys. I am Anna, visiting Tony G, as you all know him, from a far, far galaxy far away in a distant land.
Yes, very well. Very good. Yes, and we are here to talk about Emblem 29. And this is a very impromptu Hermetic Journeys video. So, we're going to be reading some of this stuff because, Anna came to visit. She also from a distant galaxy far, far away in another universe, in a parallel universe. And so we're having some fun with this, but we just wanted to do this and have fun. So just, if you bear with us, we're reading a lot of this stuff because I wrote a lot of it, and Anna's I want her to have a big voice here, so she's gonna read a lot of it. Almost
pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much. Right. She did a great job the last take, so everything's gonna be fine. All right, so we're talking about Emblem 29 from Atalanta Fugiens, right? And let's take a look at the emblem, right? The emblem is a salamander bathed in fire here with smoke and everything. And if you notice on the back of the salamander, there's a row of stars. We're going to investigate all that really cool stuff, all right? So I'll read the motto first, okay? The motto says, "As the salamander lives in fire, so also the stone." Okay, so we know this has to do with the Philosopher's Stone, as all of these emblems do, right? And, all right, Anna, would you read the epigram for us, please?
Sure. The salamander sports in scorching heat, and Vulcan bids defiance to your threats. The stone, so also being thereto injured, withstands the strongest flames wherever endured. The vermin cold and moist congeals the fire. This stone with heat does as its light conspire.
Excellent. Excellent job, Anna. Okay, like I said, very impromptu. And so that's really cool. Now Anna's going to read kind of my interpretation of this emblem. Okay, so go right ahead, Anna.
Okie dokie. According to the HME de Jong, the salamander represents Mercury in its final stages in the creation of the Philosopher's Stone. This is matter in its most purified form, as it has been through calcination stage and the purification stage, the black and white phases of the creation of the stone. The fire could very well be the spirit or soul of the alchemist, the divine essence in everyone. The fire makes the salamander, which I believe represents the Philosopher's Stone, immortal. Remember that the stone was used medicinally to cure all diseases. This, too, is more than likely symbolic of the highest spiritual evolution of a human soul, or as the spiritual evolution of the alchemist creating the stone.
Oh, by the way, speaking of which, would you like to speak with people who have not subscribed? Can you believe that?
Yes, I cannot believe this information that I am listening to at the moment. So please, subscribe and like. What's the worst that can happen? You get another notification for these lovely videos created by Tony T over here. We're almost at 500, just a couple away. So your like and subscribe can help us to reach that 500. Heck, let's reach 600 while we're at it. Tell your friends, tell your families, tell everybody. The more, the merrier.
I just love it. I'm loving it. Now we also, one thing I want to mention here, we also see this very emblem, one very similar to it, in another alchemical work called the Book of Lambspring. And here is that emblem. So obviously the Book of Lambspring was published before Atalanta Fugiens. And so apparently it inspired Michael Maier and Mattheus Merian, who's the illustrator, the etching guy.
Why, thank you, dear sir. Thank you.
And now, Anna would like to read something I wrote about this as well. Anna?
Sure. This is emblem number 10 from Lambspring, and we can see, like emblem 29, that the salamander is being forged in the fire. In both emblems, we can see a row of stars along the back of the salamander. And also in both emblems, we can summarize they is being purified in the fire, and perhaps this is a symbolic evolution of the soul of the alchemist, just as the Philosopher's Stone is the perfection of not only its ingredients, but also the soul of the alchemist who created it.
Now, the Book of Lambspring contains a much longer epigram than any of the epigrams in Atalanta Fugiens. So,
I'm going to read the motto to you. The motto says, "A salamander lives in the fire, which imparts to it a most glorious hue." All right. Now, the epigram. I'm going to read the first part here. It says, this is the reiteration, gradation, and amelioration of the tincture, or philosopher's stone. And the whole is called its augmentation.
All right. In all fables, we are told that the salamander is born in the fire. In the fire, it has that food and life, which nature herself has assigned to it.
It dwells in a great mountain, which is encompassed by many flames, and one of these is even smaller than is ever smaller than the other. Herein, the salamander bathes.
The third is greater, the fourth brighter than the rest. In all these the salamander washes and is purified. Then he hies him to his cave, but on the way is caught and pierced, so that it dies and yields up its life with its blood.
But this too happens for its good, for from its blood it wins immortal life, and then death has no more power over it. Its blood is the most precious medicine upon earth. The same has not its like in the world.
For this blood drives away all disease in the bodies of metals, of men and of beasts. From it the sages derive their science, and through it they attain the heavenly gift, which is called the philosopher's stone, possessing the power of the whole world. This gift the sages impart to us with loving hearts, that we may remember them forever.
Excellent. And so we see, of course, this is, the Book of Lambspring is more telling concerning what this salamander represents, and it's obviously representing the philosopher's stone, right? Anna, would you like to read my commentary? And
alrighty. You might be wondering, why is there a row of stars on the back of the chameleon? Well, here's a photo of a salamander, and you can see why Mattheus Merian decided to etch these stars on the back of the salamander. One last thing here. The word augmentation tells us that the alchemist repeats the process through the many stages of the creation of the philosopher's stone. But in the final stage, he or she is working with the perfection of the purified matter. And so the stone is in its most perfect form.
And Steve Kalec, our resident alchemist, has and our dear friend, has mentioned many times in his explanations, the alchemical perspective, that sometimes he has to do the same operation many times, because we want the purest substance that we can get when the alchemist is creating the philosopher's stone. Okay, Anna, and finally.
All right, now let's let the Hermetic Journeys team give us their perspective on this one. Take it away, team.
Hello, Tony, my good friend, and greetings to our viewers. What can we understand about the salamander and its alchemical meaning? Let us first understand that the salamander as a creature associated with fire predates its alchemical symbolism. Pliny the Elder, a Roman who wrote the Encyclopedic Naturalis Historia in the 1st century CE, he speaks of the salamander as a creature that could extinguish flames. Pliny was not an alchemist, yet his description of the salamander as a fireproof animal had to influence later interpretations in alchemy. But how did the salamander become associated with being a fireproof animal? It was observed that salamanders were emerging from logs that were burning in fires, and they were able to escape forest fires, suggesting their ability to withstand flames and fire. Alchemists know that without fire there is no alchemy. It was Jabir, or better known Geber, in the 8th century CE, who referred to fire being central to the alchemical processes, whether it be direct fire or the heat of putrefaction. The central theme of fire helped to lead the later adaptation of the salamander as an alchemical symbol, which slowly evolved and became prominent for the alchemists. In fact, it was Paracelsus who introduced the salamander as a symbol of the fire element in his treatise, The Elementals. He declared the salamander as the fire element alongside the undines, water, gnomes earth, and sylphs air. He also asserted that these elementals had the same qualities as their respective elements, confirming the salamander to the purifying and transformative virtues of fire. In alchemy, the salamander refers to a potent spirit capable of withstanding fire and able to endure extreme heat and surviving flames, thus being resilient, transformative, and the purifying powers of fire. The salamander eventually evolved. Not only was it associated with purification through fire, but it became symbolic of the process of trial by fire of substances or products passing through intense and dangerous alchemical processes, much like the salamander surviving the forest fires and burning logs. Let us immediately understand that the alchemical process is universal to all levels of being, from the practical, physical, to the spiritual and the metaphysical levels in man. Fire is fire on all levels of being. A spiritual and metaphysical experience can be as overwhelming as a trial by fire that needs to be overcome with the resilience of the salamander surviving a forest fire. This can very much be understood as a purification through baptism, or as by the fire of the Holy Spirit's cleansing power. We should not forget the awesome power of the Kundalini fire on the sympathetic nervous system, initiating the alchemical processes in the metaphysical practices. Even in the practical classical works of alchemy and the many laboratory processes involving the fire of the crucible, the salamander has its essential role well established, especially in experiments researching the confection of the philosopher's stone. So we ask ourselves, what could the salamander be that would be most appropriate in revealing to us this substance, especially in the practical laboratory works? It does strike us very uncanny that the names salamander and a salt known as salamoniac sound phonetically similar. We must therefore explore that the salamander may be a secret cover name for what we may understand as the secret fire and the hidden alchemical sulfur embodied as a salt. Well, as the salamander, so too salamoniac is also fireproof. When it is burned at high temperatures, it readily sublimates without melting and vaporizing. As a compound being fireproof, salamoniac is used in alchemical transformations exposed to heat using fire operations. In the operative practical work, the salamander's symbolic role is in facilitating purification or transmutation. It also helps to bring together hard-to-unite substances. This signifies to our understanding that the salamander is a kind of a reagent. To conclude, let me say, in the alchemical symbolism, the salamander is the hieroglyph of fire. It is the transformative nature of fire as a high-heat process. It burns away dross and impurities to expose something purer, which are the alchemical goals of transmutation, purification, and fixation. So, my friends, that's the end of my presentation. I hope you found it worthy enough to listen to. I wish you all best wishes and peace profound. Until next time, bye.
Greetings to all viewers of Hermetic Journeys. From all the references Dr. Maier made, I of course chose the one about the Greek hero Achilles for today's topic. The story is well known. Every night, the goddess Thetis immerses his son Achilles into fire to make him immortal. The oldest known reference to this story is in the Argonautica of Apollonius Rhodius from the 3rd century BC, which is 500 years after the creation of the Homeric Iliad. This story contradicts the Homeric Iliad because in the latter, Achilles was not only wounded on his arm, but was also bleeding. Yet the motive, which was mentioned by Michael Maier, appears in the Homeric version too, depicted with a completely different allegorical setup that could be summarized as waiting with determination. After Agamemnon took away from Achilles his wife Briseis, Achilles was very pissed, because she was a spoil of war that he deservedly acquired after sacking the city of Lyrnessus. Or this is how he explained the situation in the Iliad. Oh, and he also said that he liked her a bit. The stubbornness of Achilles was portrayed in many classical Greek works, for example in the Iphigenia in Aulis by Euripides. If he felt that injustice was done, then he wasn't afraid to confront everyone around him. So after Agamemnon took away Briseis, Achilles decided to never enter the battle again. He stayed away from the fight for a long time, watching it from a distance, even after his friends were injured or died. The reason why it is more preferable to wait instead of reacting somehow to the changes is the real reason why Odysseus said to the Cyclops that his name was nobody.
All the time that you, a separate individual, are trying to step out of being a separate individual, then you're going on reinforcing the idea that there's an individual who can step out of being an individual.
You see, I get now, what I'm getting now is a feeling of fear.
Yes.
And I think to myself, I can't step out of who I am, and I've got to meet up my obligations, and what is there at the end of...
But you've never met your obligations. Yeah. You only, in the dream, believe you have taken action to meet your obligations. You don't have any obligations because there's no one sitting there.
If you try to do anything, that would just strengthen the belief to be a person. Therefore, it would only delay the reconditioning of the body-mind. So the only option that remains is just waiting in the fire. Achilles only decided to join the war again after the death of Patroclus. But then the goddess Thetis, his mother, stopped him. She told him to wait for another day, until Hephaestus creates new armor for him. And this is where the motif of fire comes into the story. His armor was crafted by the god of fire on the request of Thetis. So he waited another day with determination. Then the next day he received greaves, a breastplate, a helmet, and the most spectacular one, which is called the Shield of Achilles, decorated with intricate images of landscapes, people, festivities, a battle, and many more. From the book Silence Hills by Yolande Duran. When I lie down, when I close my eyes and relax, I slip into another state. It is not at all like the waking state, neither the dreaming state nor deep sleep. I am totally conscious. At the same time, I have lost all awareness of my body. I have the impression I am nothing but sight, sight with eyes closed. There phenomena appear, faces, landscapes, intense and fleeting forces, things charged with such reality that once back in the waking state, the words seeing or real take on a totally different meaning.
Hi, Tony, thanks. So the salamander, not much to go on here. I know it's a fire element, so let's start there. So what's an elemental anyway? They are primordial, ancient beings, the embodiment of the nature element they correspond with. But one of these things is not like the others, so let's take a closer look. And for that, we should probably use a crystal ball. What? Not realistic enough? Well, neither are the images of the elementals we're most familiar with. They've all been enchanted by the wizard of the House of Mouse. We've come to see them as cartoon creatures, but they are powerful and worthy of our respect. Like many other magical beings, we don't see them because they are of their element and they hide in plain sight. Gnomes are the embodiment of earth, sturdy as boulders, supportive as the ground you walk on, the soil that nourishes us. There's no denying the power of landslides, avalanches, and earthquakes, and while they can travel the world, they do not wear bright colors and pointy hats. Undines hold the energies of the still, deepest lakes, the crashing ocean waves, but also of fast-running rivers and slow, steady springs. They are the embodiment of water, the element we literally cannot live without. Steady and patient, they can carve a canyon out of a mountain, or they can hurl their full force at us in massive storms that can reclaim a coastline in a matter of minutes. These are not merfolk in seashell bikinis sunning themselves on a boulder near the shore and splashing their tails. Sylphs of air. Invisible as their element, they are said to have wings, but the resemblance to Tinkerbell ends there. They can caress us with a warm summer breeze or bring us to our knees with hurricane-force winds. Adding their power to other elements, they can erase whole villages without a trace, in the form of sandstorms or tsunamis. But then there are salamanders, fire elementals. There are no cute cartoons featuring a salamander. I know what you're thinking, but no, he's a gecko. What hides behind the creature that is very much still alive and thriving in many gardens? Ever heard that dinosaurs live among us in the birds that come to our feeders? Tiny remnants of the once giant lizards that ruled their world. The first image doesn't hint at size, but the second one does. And now we're getting somewhere. The man holds a pitchfork, trident, spear, shades of St. George and the Dragon. Now there's a creature mighty enough to represent the element of fire. And dragons, it turns out, have a special place in the Celtic bestiary. There are 4 types that represent energy and power, each one mediating in accordance with their corresponding, wait for it, element. Like so many tales of transformation, tales of the personal alchemy that takes the hero from lead to gold, the most purified form, after completing a series of challenges, the black and white phases, the dragon's tale, no pun intended, begins as we all do, in water. Beginning life as a worm, the water dragon lives in, well, water. Think Nessie, who some believe is just that, a water dragon. Water being the gateway to the other world, the unconscious, these dragons bring what is hidden into the light, including hidden memories. Because these memories are often unresolved, repressed, and distorted, there is a danger that we can become overwhelmed by emotion and drown in sorrow or self-pity. This is the destructive nature of dragons, and the lesson here is to learn how to harness these energies. But this, too, happens for its good. The water worms grow legs and become wyverns. Earth dragons are barrow guardians that snooze in barrows filled with grave goods, which over time become mountains of dragon's treasure. Think Smaug. They are content to slumber on our inner riches unless disturbed by hobbits or ourselves. Making sure that none shall violate our innermost self, they will deny our waking consciousness entry into our reserves of power and potential. The dragon needs to be respected and loved, but also challenged and overcome. Taming your dragon refers to creating harmony with your environment, but also with aspects of ourselves. Can you face the dragon guardian of the treasure house of your soul with humility and sincerity? If you can, they may guide you to the center where you'll find the inspiration to be reborn. Wait, isn't How to Train Your Dragon an animated movie? That surely proves my point that dragons are the fourth elemental. The third is greater. Air dragons need to be treated with considerable respect. While the earth dragon can curl around a hill and create a labyrinthine path like the one on Glastonbury Tor, a place where 2 dragon lines are known to cross right under the tower. Air dragons fly along these lines, also known as ley or elemental lines, that often connect sacred sites. They can manifest as a sudden flash of illumination that can knock us right out of that tower. They bring insight and clarity to our thoughts and imagination, and are seen as messengers of the sky god. They can be destructive as lightning, or, if treated with respect and gained as an ally, can help us journey further toward enlightenment, offering an invitation to soar to higher levels of consciousness. And so we come to the fire dragon, the fourth, brighter than the rest. It dwells in a great mountain. Then he hires him to his cave. Well, legend says there's a secret cave in the Tor that is guarded by a flaming dragon who prevents desecrations by the greedy, but offers treasure to the worthy. They're concerned with kingship, leadership, and mastery, and you can see a golden torque, the necklace worn by the ancient Celts to indicate high status, a ruler. Fire gives us vitality, courage, and an increased ability to overcome obstacles and cope with life's problems. It fuels our inner fire to accomplish tasks and achieve objectives, but too much can burn out of control, causing us to explode in anger or allow our energy to become scattered and dissipated. Developing a good relationship with the fire dragon can help keep this balance. As an ally, they will give you access to the energy you need. You can ask them to take the excess from you and keep it safe, or give you some of the treasure they guard. The treasure of our inner fire is known as Nuvri, the druid equivalent to Kundalini, a fire that circulates through all our energy centers. These are the fiercest of all the dragons, and the consequences of misusing their power can lead to burnout and nervous exhaustion, or imbalance and illness. The Druids saw each of these dragons as representing energy and power, each mediating those in accordance with their element. We are called to weave all 4 together, and our success in working with them is dependent on our preparation. Possessing the power of the whole world. Not all knowledge is for public consumption, and not all power is for use by all. The dangers of knowledge and power in the wrong hands is easily corrupted. Druids saw dragons as neutral, neither beneficial or maleficent. Yeah. The magic of the House of Mouse may be everywhere, but the lore of the dragon is much older. The red dragon is the symbol worn by a line of legendary British kings. The story goes that King Uther saw a vision of a fiery dragon in the sky, a sign that he would be king. So he took the name Pendragon, meaning head of the dragon. He passed both of these on to his son, Arthur, who is often depicted wearing the dragon symbol on his armor. The red dragon can still be seen in the flag of Wales today. So, we've got the salamander as a stand-in for the dragon, but what about those stars on its back? Salamandra atra aurore. Reminds me of the aurora borealis, and something else. Take a close look at this image of the goddess Arianrhod. Her name means silver wheel, a reference to the full moon, and to her being a goddess of time and fate. Her spindle is prominent, and we see her spinning the thread of moonlight into knotwork, leading us through the labyrinth of our lives to our sovereign center. In the center of that knotwork, we see her totem, the Ouroboros, usually depicted as a snake eating its tail, but hers is clearly a dragon. The Ouroboros symbolizes her rule over time, cycles, and the tides. She is the divine spark that sets the universal cycle into motion. We honor her at the time of the total lunar eclipse, when the moon appears to go through all its phases, but itself remains unchanged, with no shadows or projections imposed upon it. Wearing a silver torque of sovereignty, she is a catalyst for change who, like the moon, remains unchanged. Above her, we see the constellation of the Corona Borealis, known in Welsh as Caer Arianrhod, a heavenly mirror of her Caer, her castle, the remains of which can be seen in the North Atlantic when the tide is at its lowest. A true alchemist, she is the great teacher who puts challenges in our path to help us reach the highest spiritual evolution of a human soul. So no matter how popular it may be, no mouse magic can ever even hope to touch that. Just ask my cats.
I just want to say thank you all for having me here today to help Tony G out make this Emblem 29 a wonderful emblem. Please, please, please like and subscribe. The more likes and subscribes you get, the more footage and more greatness of these emblems that Tony G will share with us. So please, once again, like and subscribe, and thanks for joining us today. As always, have a wonderful day.